Hello, my name is Talia Chavez, and today I will be making a presentation on a women's march in Mexico City turns violent with at least 81 injured. I will be making this presentation for my SOP 3742 class, which is Psychology of Women. I am a Florida International student for the spring of 2021. The reason I chose to make my presentation on this article is because as a Mexican woman myself, I've never been to Mexico, and so I wouldn't know what the psychology of women in Mexico would be. I've lived all my life here in South Florida and I've never been to Mexico before, but I was very interested to see what was taking place in recent events, and so I made this presentation. So just to begin, the article of choice that I made for this presentation is, of course, from Mexican women. So the article essentially is, of course, from New York Times. The reason that the women of Mexico City decided to protest on International Women's Day was because they were not happy with the decisions that the president has made, the Mexican president has made. He has decided to work alongside a politician who has been accused of rape by multiple women, but then the other issues that the Mexican women were outraged were that the Mexican women were outraged about was because the lack of action and justice that the Mexican president has taken since he has been in office. From the article, we can see that the president's campaign during the election was, that he was a populist and that he was selling the idea that he was going to be the voice for the marginalized people like women. But of course, since he's taken office about 2 years ago, the women of Mexico haven't really seen a change in the issues that he claimed he would help resolve. And so that's why they were they were led to protesting. And so the relevant course content I chose to focus on was through chapter 12 and chapter 14. Of course, chapter 12 came to great relevance because of gender-based violence. Through gender-based violence, there is, of course, rape culture and the horrible acts that unfortunately women do face. But then also through chapter 14, I used the tensions, actions, and hope for the future. Through this chapter, I really focus on the allyships that women can use in ways that we can protest and use activism, and of course the joys and pearls of activism itself. These topics go very hand in hand, with chapter 12, giving us a great foundation of the violence that women are sadly victimized in, but then also in chapter 14, where we can see some possible resolutions and just have hope for the future. So just to begin, in chapter 12, what gender-based violence is basically targeted hate and anger towards a person's gender. So it's an attack, basically. It's a targeted attack towards a person because of their gender, not necessarily because of them as a person, but because of their gender. And so we can see these acts of violence and abuse in various ways, as in as psychological abuse, emotional abuse, and also childhood sexual abuse. We can see that through statistics that women are always are not always, but more than likely to be victims of hate, of gender-based violence. We can see that through the article also, that ever since that the president, Mr. Lopez Obrador, has taken office, an average of 10 women are murdered every day. And the rape cases in Mexico have also risen. And to see these these hateful actions being made against women because they are women is very outraging. And so, of course, that's why they decided to protest. But essentially, through this chapter, we can see we can see in detail and explanations as to why these, and actually not necessarily why, but these actions being made against women. Another topic that chapter 12 speaks about is also rape culture and what rape culture is. Essentially, rape culture is sexual violence that has been normalized, sadly, and perpetrators' desensitization of their repercussions. So perpetrators of rape they believe that their actions won't be as harsh compared to those of murder. It's sadly become normalized in our society, where a lot of rapists tend to kind of slide under the rug in court cases. A lot of them really don't really serve justice to the victims that have to, live with that abuse that they went through, for the rest of their life, while the perpetrator just, only gets little to no punishment. And so we can also see that in the article. It also mentions how a lot of the rape cases in Mexico, on average, have been at a 5% criminal sentence. So that's a very low statistic for Mexican women. From this, through this information, we can see how they're not really getting the justice that they deserve, with only 5% being of the perpetrators actually receiving criminal sentence. It's outraging. Like, they're not receiving the justice that they deserve. And we're not really even seeing a change in these issues either, with the president not even speaking out or making any changes, to these issues to minimize these rape cases being taken. And so to move along, in chapter 14, and building bridges, a call for allyship. Allyship is basically befriending and building strong relations with people with privilege, so that the subordinate can basically speak about and share social injustices that are taking place. I believe that with allyship, allyship, we can resolve many issues with a lot of the issues that women face these days. Of course, women, well, from seeing how there's a lot of gender-based violence against women, we can see that the value of women isn't the same as or equal to that of a man. And so if we build allyships with people that have privilege, and bring awareness of the issues that we face, I believe that we can actually resolve a lot of the issues that kind of just become ignored. And so to touch on the article, the president, Mr. Lopez Obrador, he actually, when he was running for election, his campaign was that of a populist movement. He showed that he wanted to be a voice for the marginalized, but of course, the Mexican women have seen that he has done little to no action to resolve any issues. I believe that with taking allyship with better government officials and even supporting those that we know that will be more genuine in the claims that they make, we will no longer continue to have this false hope that that these changes will be made, like Mr. Lopez Obrador's. Another good topic about the joys and pros of activism is that through activism we can channel our inner anger from the discrimination and take action to transform the helplessness to empowerment. I know that a few days ago there was a man in, I believe, is in Georgia. I believe it was in Georgia, murdered about 8 people, and from those 8 people, 6 of them were women. Well, to begin, they were Asian, but from those 8 Asians, 6 of them were Asian women. And since that crime, since that murder, those murders, there has been a spike in activism with the hashtag Stop Asian Hate. That is a sign of that is a form of activism. It's speaking against Asian hate, but also speaking against gender-based violence. With using the activism, we can actually bring empowerment to those that feel alone and believe that that they don't have a voice. With activism, we can actually show people that they're not the only ones feeling this prejudice, feeling like they're alone. We can show them that there's more that are experiencing that same discrimination. And that's why a lot of women tend to join feminist groups. And so some future considerations to resolve some issues that were discussed would be to be accepting of male feminists. I believe that with accepting male feminists, it's basically how we would use the allyship. With accepting male feminists, I believe that we can use their privilege and their voices, their strong voices, into sharing the message that our lips are ignored. The message that are ignored, that are ignored from us. And also by trying to use different protest tactics. If we can't protest with violence, then how about we protest with how we use our money, what companies we choose to support, but then also through voting. I believe through voting we can use the best. It would be the best protesting tactic. And then also by changing laws and discriminations that have been normalized through our society. I believe that once we see and speak out against that discrimination that has taken place, I believe that we can start kind of correcting and also molding the future into what should and into what it should be, instead of waiting until another hate crime to take place. I believe that we should start calling it out once we see it. Changing these normalized discriminations that we see every day. I believe that we will be molding the future into a better place. So this was my presentation on the New York Times article of a women's march in Mexico turns violent with at least 81 injured. Thank you.